Hello everybody, welcome to the Sound Test Room. Today we are taking a look at Koala Sampler and how to sample your AUV3s, hardware instruments, pretty much anything you can get in there. And we're going to use AUM. So the first thing we want to do is make sure Koala is in the effect slot. Okay, so once I put it in, we won't be like, so this is the sound from Dagger. Once I put Koala in, you won't hear any sound. Let's open up Koala. And what we need to do is make sure this is on input here. Switch this on. And now we can hear our sound passing through Koala. Now, if you notice the input level, we want to keep that fairly controlled. We don't want to go in too high into the red because we can fix this in Koala later. Also, I would suggest you sample in a C note. Okay, this will keep everything controlled and you'll be able to play all your instruments because everything will map then correctly to C. If I was to sample in an F, that F would be then mapped to C. Just do a C, it's easier, much easier. Now, the point of this one with Dagger is a monophonic synth. I can't play chords. So I'm going to start by sampling this particular sound into Koala. So all I need to do is tap on this pad. Now there are two options for recording onto pads. If we look in our settings here, you will see that hold to record I have switched off. That means I can just tap the pad and it's going to stay on and it leaves my hands free to do it. If it was a guitar, for example, that's how I sampled in my Spectral Guitars pack. I have hold to record switched off because, again, I can just edit in Koala. It's no problem. Okay, so as soon as I press this now, it's waiting for me to start playing a note. So I'm going to just play this C note for a little bit and then just stop record. Right, and you will see there it is, and we can take Dagger out, so all you're hearing is this. So let's go into edit and see what's going on. So there's all that time it waited for me to start recording. So first of all, we can definitely crop that, and this at the end is where I stopped. So we can drag this in like that, and then also just hit crop. Okay, so, all right. Now, say for example, I play my keyboard now. It's not gonna do anything because we're in sampling mode. We've got this in an effect slot. So before I do anything else, I'm gonna sample in another couple of instruments so that we've got a few to work with, right? So we've got our one here, our C note. Let's go to our Dagger here, make a few adjustments to the sound. So we are now hearing this. If we go back to sample, come off edit, we're now hearing this, but it's the same sound as that, right? So let's make a few adjustments to that sound. So I'm going to make this kind of into a plucky type sound. Okay, so just that, and I'm going to make sure I'm playing C. Okay, let's close this. And again, all we need to do is tap on this pad here, and when we're ready, just hit that C. Okay, done, and there it is. And you'll notice it's a very short, plucky sound, but we'll leave that as it is. We can do all the editing in a moment, okay? So again, let's go to our sample here so we can see our input. And this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Dagger out completely, close it, and I'm going to select hardware input 3 and 4 because I have this, which is the little Roland S1 synthesizer plugged into my audio interface, my Steinberg audio interface, into channel 3 and 4. So now I can sample my hardware synths or anything, or vocal or whatever you like, any instrument, guitars, whatever you want, whatever's plugged into your hardware input. or your audio interface. So I'm going to sample that in, and I'm going to make sure I play a C. So just hit record and wait, and then play it for as long as you want. Stop this, and then we've got this now. Very cool. So now we've got 3 instruments set up, and now we can go and do some editing. So what we need to do, and this is important, open our menu. Now you'll see I've got this song called Make Instruments. I made this in Koala standalone. All right. I'm going to hit save, and it's going to save that session as these 3 instruments, right? So now let's take Koala out of here and let's open it up in another audio unit, audio instance. Let's connect it to my MIDI keyboard. So I'm going to go Steinberg, this port 1, which is where my little keyboard is plugged into. We won't hear anything yet. Let's open it up, and you'll see it's a blank project, right? Let's do this, load, and inside of an AUV3, it takes you to the Files app to load your project, so it's no problem. And just find your make instruments. You see it's 4 meg. So we'll just click on this and it will open up, and there are our make instruments. Now, me playing my MIDI keyboard, you still won't hear anything. So what we need to do is set this to keyboard mode. So go into sequence, switch this on. That's it. Choose a slot. And now when we go back, you'll see a little keyboard icon, and I can play this instrument. But the cool thing is, we know that Dagger is a monophonic synth. So I can now play this. Polyphonically. But we need to do some editing with this sound. Now, I don't need to keep going back into keyboard mode now. Every time I select a sample, there's a Roland, there's the other Dagger one, the more plucky sound, and this. Hit edit, and now we can do some editing. Let's normalize this. So go tools, normalize. Let's put some release on, so it's more natural sounding. Now look, if I hold this instrument right, it's going to cut off here, right? And if I have it on loop, and even if I bring this in like this, it's going to sound weird if it's looped. So if we want an instrument that's sustained, we can actually get rid of this. It's not necessary because it's a kind of a... You wouldn't let it play to the end because it cuts off. So what we could do here is, let's crop that. So we've got this. Let's do some cool stuff with the looping. Open loop, and we're gonna go set loop point, and you'll see this appear here now. Now, if I hold this now, you can hear that click still. More obvious there, but you can still hear that little click. Oh, it's pretty good there. But let's put it somewhere you can actually hear the click a bit more. So this is our loop point. So we're sustaining a note on the keyboard and it's looping round. Let's open this up and look, let's engage crossfade. So crossfade, once you switch loop point on, crossfade becomes active, and you can, so watch what happens here now. And now you've got an almost perfect loop. So that means if I play some chords, it's going to sustain forever, but it's going to sound pretty good. So let's take our volume down a little bit. And this will now sustain forever. right, cool. So that sounds really good. Always keep remembering to save, because when you go back into your standalone version, it'll all be saved for you, ready to do whatever you like. Now, this one, let's look at this one. Okay, so definitely going to crop all that stuff off at the beginning. Going to go and crop all that off there. So crop. And yeah, let's normalize it because we can. Let's give it some release. Well, there's not any release to give it, really. It's not really necessary, but we can add effects. Let's do this one as well. I'm going to crop that and normalize. And I can give these samples names and they'll be remembered wherever we put them, sort of thing. So I could theoretically go in and say, well, let's go into tools, label this one Roland S1, because that was a little synth. Click OK, and you'll see a little tag there, Roland S1. And then whatever project I decide to drag this in from, well, you can't do it from the AUV3, but I'll quickly show you that in a standalone in a sec. So now we've got that, we can start to add effects. Now there's a couple of ways. We don't need this. And we can, let's make this into a loop as well. So let's go into, let's crop that there. Okay, crop. And let's put loop on, see how it sounds. So you're really hearing that right. Let's go into loop point. That turns crossfade on. And let's start with this. Let's bring this along a little bit. Almost perfect. Now, we can add some effects to any of these. If we go into our mix here, you can now add any of these effects to any of the mix buses available. Okay, so for example, I could say go, oh, okay, mix bus A for this, right? We can make some adjustments with the EQ if we want. So let's go to this. Okay. Let's go over to our samples page here and then, oh, not samples page, sorry. Let's go over to our perform page, hit mixer, and this is mix bus A. You can see it's coming through. Let's add maybe a delay in here. So now, once we save our project again, of course, all this stuff's going to be remembered. So now you've created 3 instruments. Now let me show you another way you can kind of make new instruments from within by resampling. Right. I think for this now, we can go to the standalone version. So let's just save this and there'll be a slight cut now while I get into the standalone version of Koala. Okay, so now we're in the standalone version of Koala now. This means that we can access different things from our perform menu and also our samples. You'll see now that there is another option appeared called songs. This means we can take any sample from anywhere. So for example, at the moment, I'm just going to go into, where is it? What's it called this? Make Instruments. Here it is, Make Instruments. And you can see we're only used, this is this project, right? So we can open this, and if I take this sample and stick it on there, you'll see that it's got our label on it that we put in. This means that you can take this sample into any other project and it'll have that label. So if you're looking for particular instruments and stuff, maybe it's a good idea to label your instruments, okay, as you go. But like I said, we could go in here, samples, go back and go with this one, Otherworldly, since the first one. So we could take this, place it on there, and then you can also go into the basics. Now, Koala is $4.99, and there are a couple of IAPs that you'll need to do all this stuff, right? $1.99 for the AUV3, $4.99 for the Samurai mode, which allows you to chop samples. I'll do another tutorial on that. And another IAP for the mixer, which I think is, $3.99 or $4.99. It's very cheap, all of it together, and it's really good. Right. You also get, when you buy Koala, you get all these basic patches as well. So you get a bunch of drum hits. You might want to go with some kicks. These all come with Koala. Oh, that's deep. Let's put that in there like that. And let's close all this out now. So now we've dragged that in. It's cutting off too quick. Go to edit. Have it on one shot. Okay. There's our new one here. Going to go to sequence, switch on keyboard mode, choose a pad. Here's our Roland S1 with our effects on it. We can resample any of this stuff, right? Now I'm going to do another video where I show you how you can chop up loops and stuff like this. So now we've got all this sustaining with our loop point, which is very cool. Let's go this now. Let's change this to resample from app. What we're going to do now is apply some of Koala's effects to this sound and resample it onto another pad. We'll probably resample it onto this one because it's easier, right? Don't forget about your settings here where you have hold to record. I always have that switched off and just switch it on and then do the editing later. Like you said, we recorded 3 of these inside of AUM, you know, so doing all the editing and stuff inside of, well, the standalone version. Right, anyway, there are a couple of effects here that you can use, like for instance, this one. See, I've got it on resample. Or you can go to your perform. Now, you didn't used to be able to do this. I'm going to switch mixer off down here. Switch on hold. Here's my sound. Okay, say we've added some dub delay. You could have temp, you could do it, you know. Make sure you've got hold on though. Now you used to have to make a sequence to do this. I'm not going to get into that. You don't have to do that now. Go back to sample. And there's that sound with all those cool effects on. Apart from what, you know, I haven't added any effects from anywhere else. You could add that in as well if you wanted to. Anyway, well, what we're going to do, all we need to do, right, is switch this on and stop it. And now, this one now. Now, remember to go back to your perform effects, switch hold off. Let's go into edit. So edit the sample. We can switch them off now. We're not using them anyway. Let's do this. Let's crop. You can normalize it if you want to. Let's have some release. So now you've got another completely new instrument. And these effects are kind of baked in now. It's a kick we imported. We haven't done anything to that, but we could add some delay or whatever. But we could do it from the mix. So let's send this to bus. Well, if we send it to bus A, it's going to have that delay note that's on here. So you get the idea, but we could say send it to bus B. Let's go into perform, go to our mixer, bus B, and maybe have a flanger on there. I think it sounds a little bit dry, so let's go back to the perform mixer here and also add in a reverb. So the original one there. The one we sampled from that. And of course, like, you know, you could go in and make a copy of this somewhere else and then go and edit it. Let's go back to our sample page. So it has a loop point. So chop off all that there. Let's go to, in fact, we don't need to worry about doing that just yet. We can do that in a minute. Go on to our loop and go into loop point. See what happens when this comes around now. Let's bring our crossfade in a little bit. So now we've got a sustaining chord for this one, and then also for this one we've got it like it's just a plucked instrument. That won't sustain. All that noise was Watson. This does your head in, doesn't he?
It's driving me mad.
In and out, in and out. And then this one is different again because we've now applied it to be looping. Now, also in the loop, and I'll show you this on a different sound, you have this ping pong, which can make a big difference if you're using texture drones and things like that. In fact, what we could do quickly before I go is open this up. And I'm going to use Sample Crate because I'm going to drag it up here and open it at the side. Because I can drag and drop samples from Sample Crate. Now, I can also do this in the AUV3 version as well. But what I'm going to do is find some sort of texture or drone sounds. I've got some textures here. So right, perfect. I'm going to drag this and stick it onto this pad. Okay. Now we can get rid of Sample Crate out the way. And this now. Right, there's loads of editing we can do with this. So first thing I'm going to do is make sure it's on loop and hold. And I'm going to make some adjustments to this sound. So I'm not going to crop it just yet. In fact, yeah, I'll crop that. It's just a waste of space. I am definitely going to normalize it because it's quiet. And if I pinch with 2 fingers and then with 2 fingers drag along, I can get real surgical at the beginning of it. So what we can do, let's play this sample, sorry. If we want the sample just as it is to stay, that's fine, but we want to make something that will loop as well. Let's bring this in like this. And we haven't got to get rid of this, remember, right? So let's bring it in like this. I'm going to switch on loop point, and it'll default to somewhere like this, but you know, we don't need to worry. Let's listen to it. Right. You hear how it's kind of, you know, it's jumping back to this start point. Now, we could mess around with the start and finish at the loop point. Let's leave it there. Let's bring in our crossfade because that's really handy. So you can see how much crossfade you're applying if you look here and here. See, so let's just see how that sounds. Now that's much better, right? But let's put ping pong on as well. And watch what will happen is it'll get to the end and it'll start ping-ponging backwards and forwards. And you can get some really nice effects like that. So it'll start going forward and then it'll play in reverse. But because it's a texture or a drone, it should sound really good. Okay, so we could say, well, let's bring this in a little bit here. That sounds really good. Now, especially if we've got this, let's go with mix. In fact, let's have, holders on, loopers on. So it's just going to continually bounce backwards and forwards. Let's go to mix. Let's set this on, say, bus C. Let's go into perform. Bus C, here you can see the drone. Let's give this a free verb. And some other effects. Let's see. Some cool stuff in here. And maybe a warble. Okay. Let's give it some bass boost. So we've got that just playing. We can now go to any of our other instruments, because this is looping, remember, and play around with it. And don't forget, right, let's stop this. Don't forget, you can import whatever you like, spoken word. I'm going to do a really good one on chopping up stuff and that, but this has gone on long enough now. Anyway, guys, if you've enjoyed this, please strike the like, subscribe to the channel, consider becoming a patron, and I will see you guys later. Thanks so much for watching. Top job, Cool Beans, how to sample pretty much everything into Koala, putting it into AUM and into the effects slot. I will see you later. Ta-da!